Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So in today's message, I want to share with you, I want to open by sharing with you all why I take the approach I do on my channel. and I hope you're doing well. I can't remember if I said that, but I hope you're doing well and I hope you enjoy the message. We're going to be also talking about confusion today, so just a heads up on that. But the reason why I don't, I guess you might say, follow suit with a lot of other channels that talk about narcissism and just being a victim of manipulation, of deception, is because, first of all, I understand that, all of us who have been through that kind of stuff, it's kind of like we need different things to just marinate on at different stages, after coming out of that situation. So in the beginning stages, yeah, it's really important to just increase, as much of your awareness as possible, right? Like down to the details. And in that stage, the labels, the terms, the phrases, things like that are specific to what's commonly called nowadays narcissistic abuse is very helpful. Because it gives you the terms and the definitions give you a framework to grasp, these concepts that are naturally foreign to you when you're just an honest person living with good intentions. All of these things are totally foreign to you, like a completely different language. So it's like learning a new language. That's how I view it. And you're doing it in hindsight. It's like you go through all this stuff first. The testing part happens first, and then the lesson comes afterward. And so what you're doing in those first stages after coming out of a bad situation is you're learning the lessons from what you went through. And so I understand that, that's really important. And there's a lot of channels out there dedicated to that. I could go down that road, but I feel like what's out there already is pretty sufficient. And so, as I was taking advantage of those other channels and learning from the other channels and also reading and my own research outside of YouTube, and as I progressed, I think that my spiritual beliefs had a little bit to do with it because, again, I'm going to reference, where the Bible says, that we're supposed to think on good things, positive things, right? And so, and yet we're instructed also to get wisdom and understanding and to be wise as serpents. So there's this balance that we're seeking. And what I felt like was needed out there on YouTube was a channel that people could relate to, who had been through psychological abuse. Their minds had just been through the ringer, and they just needed what I needed. And I'm like, okay, well, this, let's take this approach where, we're coming at everything from the side of, or the angle of, victory. We came out of it, we're okay now, we're safe now, and we're still trying to get our bearings on things. We're trying to get our minds back to a good place, and our hearts too, back to a good place. And so that's kind of the motivation for my channel, and that's the reason why I try to just bring in some different things sometimes, like symbolism and just pulling inspiration from all different places, because all this other stuff that I'm using for inspiration is just part of our real life, and it's kind of a way for us to get reacquainted with real life again after exiting this subjective reality that was really created by this controlling person or group that we were affected by, right? That we were immersed in. It's like we were immersed in this false reality. We were immersed in their world for so long, and our minds were affected by that. And so when we're coming out of it, it's like, just this whirlwind. I've put a video out, way early on. It may have even been my first one, I can't remember. at least one of my first 5, where I explained the stages for me, how it went. And I don't remember, just, you know, off the cuff in the moment, what I listed as the stages, but I can tell you just from recalling right in this present moment, you know, the first thing was just being, for me, it was just being in shock. I didn't know what to call it at the time. I didn't know to call it shock, but it was shock. The realization that things are not what you thought they were. And so that stage can last quite a while. And you can learn during that stage too, but overall, you're just kind of stuck in just dismay. That's probably the reason why I like to always say that I want to get the wheels turning for you. In other words, I want to get us out of that. I want to get us unstuck. You know, I want to get us moving again, you know, on the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. Right? So, but I take the approach I do with a lighthearted tone or tune, because this stuff is heavy and it's hard. So I think that balancing all of our research with hopeful things is healthy, you know, and humor when we can. And I also hope that by doing this, by kind of staying on the lighter side of things, that it's acting sort of like medicine, you know, like a healing type balm, you know, for you, for your heart. And in so doing, that it will help to heal your mind as well through the heart. You see what I'm saying? With just a few little, you know, informative nuggets of wisdom sprinkled in here and there, but mostly encouragement, mostly, which is why we bring a lot of spirituality into the discussions, but mostly just, you know, a healing approach. So, because psychological abuse has been shown to affect cognition greatly in so many different ways. I can tell you firsthand, your memory, even being able to recall just vocabulary, being able to string words together, being able to just remember what happened, you know, 10 minutes ago. That kind of stuff is affected. And there's videos that are out on that very thing. I forget the part of the brain that controls all that stuff, but it was very validating for me to hear about it, because that was exactly what happened to me. My short-term memory was greatly affected. I had trouble just recalling things that were a breeze for me in the past. You know, essentially, it's like the psychological abuse, the effects it has on your brain, it's like it stops you from living automatically. It's like the flow of your mind is halted. It's an awful thing to experience. And it's not something you can explain to people who haven't experienced it. Most people, at least. They just look at you like, you know, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like you're from outer space or something. And it's sad. Because then, you know, not only are you dealing with all that, but now you feel isolated. Because there's, you know, it's hard to find people that understand. Which is kind of good in a way, because it means, you know, maybe there's not that many people that have been affected. Or maybe they just haven't woken up yet. But I want to talk to you today about confusion. And I'm going to open with an example of how this is one of many, 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 many examples. And I'm not going to use the common terms that you hear on channels that, you know, discuss this stuff, like gaslighting and all that. But I will relate this to projection. So, well, I have witnessed firsthand with several people that are manipulative and cunning. Projection can be used not only towards you, like the way I've always heard it in a lot of YouTube videos, for example, is that these people, these deceptive, manipulative people, will use projection onto you and blame you for what they're doing themselves. But in my experience, and I'm not saying that's not true, but in my experience, what can happen is that these people that are actually fooling you can talk about another person that you both know and point the finger at them and project what they're actually doing onto them to make you believe that this other person is guilty of doing to your abuser what they're actually doing to you. It's a weird thing. And just one example off the top of my head is that they might say something like, you know, this person over here has always treated me differently. And you can't see it. You can't see it, right? And they'll say this person's always treated me differently. And then, you know, after you go through everything and you go through your awakening process, you realize that they were treating you differently than they treat other people. So it's just, there's a lot of different methods, just a variety of ways that confusion is used as a tool or a tactic for their cloak, to hide what they're really doing. And so, you know, sometimes I think that the term narcissism is overly used. I think that it's a real thing, and I think that it's helpful for people to use that term, just, you know, as part of conversation and language, to try to, you know, share thoughts and to learn and understand that. But I think that there's a difference between narcissism versus like someone who's a psychopath. And I think sometimes that we mistake psychopathy for narcissism when really it's more than narcissism. And this is where, you know, language sometimes fails us just by its nature, you know, and that it's, you know, sometimes characteristics can, you know, bleed over into this category and then also over here, but then with a different person it's like 60% here, 40% here, and it just kind of, everything gets kind of blurry. So sometimes it's helpful in your trying to get a grasp on things to just simply look at the details, period, and just totally forego definitions and labels. Just simply look at the facts that you've seen with your own eyes, you've heard with your own ears. Sometimes that's more beneficial than anything, okay? But like, I'll give you an example. You know, I've even wondered with codependency if you remove all kind of like evil intentions out of the equation, like deception and lies and things like that, if you take that out and put that over in the psychopathy, you know, category, and you're just looking at narcissism, you know, and codependency, sometimes I've wondered if a person who believes themselves to be codependent is viewed as others as narcissistic. So there's, you know, it all depends on your perspective, if it's you, if it's someone outside of you looking at you, and vice versa. But these terms are just sometimes they can work against us. So I just wanted to put that out there, that if you're, you know, researching and you're journaling and you're trying to figure some things out, you know, after you've come out of a situation, I just encourage you to try foregoing the terms for some time and just take a look at the details, you know. And you don't have to necessarily take the details and try to stuff them in this box and box them into these terms. You don't even have to do that, you know. Sometimes you gain more understanding by not doing that. So it's just I just want to share that with you. But, you know, there's this term called Machiavellianism, and I'm not super familiar with it, but essentially it's talking about a characteristic of certain people that means that they're cunning, they're manipulative, and they scheme. So this is like someone who has the intention of They have bad intentions. They have the intention of exploiting or using or abusing another person. So this is more in alignment with the kind of stuff I really talk about on my channel, right? When I'm talking about a toxic person or environment, I'm essentially talking about, and this is the term that has resonated the most with me, and probably the one that I just want to use going forward. And that is a wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf in sheep's clothing. For me, that label seems to fit the best for the kind of people I'm talking about. You know, none of us are perfect. It's not excusing people who might fall under a different term or anything like that, but it's just that, you know, it all kind of gets confusing. And since we're talking about confusion today, I'm just, you know, I'm thinking, well, how can we try to lessen that as much as possible in our research efforts, right? So, but that term just works for me. So, you know, when you come into this awareness that, okay, God's not joking when he's talking about wolves in sheep's clothing, right? That was my really poor attempt at a joke, but it's like, oh my gosh, not only is it real, which you knew it was real, like if you have faith and you believe God's word, then you know it's real. But I think a lot of us don't understand how prevalent it is, and we don't understand how cunning and how sneaky and good these wolves in sheep's clothing really are, right? Their sheep's clothing is so well intact. It's an incredible disguise. And so that's what I mean when I say coming into this awareness, you know, not that we didn't believe God's word, but that we had to learn how to identify it in our lives. And that just made it more real, you know what I mean? But when you're trying to share what you've learned with others who haven't come into the same awareness, it's like they think you're delusional. They think you're literally living in this make-believe reality, and you're not. And it's not to blame them. They're operating from their own coding, their own conditioning. We have to not take it personal. We have to see it for what it is. Because if we don't, if we allow this other person who can't see what we see to make us question ourselves, it's going to add to the confusion that we're already dealing with. And I'm going to tell you, our minds have been through enough. They've been through enough. Sometimes it feels like there's just barely a remnant of sanity left. And I don't mean sanity as in like you're going to flip out, but like your mind's working properly. It's like sometimes that part just feels like, you know, it's hanging on by a thread. So when I say remnant, that's what I mean. And you know, these people who you're trying, like say for example, you have a family member or a friend you've known a long time, and you're like, of course I'm not gonna go just gossip and share my story with anybody and everybody, but I want to share what I've been through with these, you know, this one or two people. But it's pretty disheartening when you go to do that and you're met with just this they're totally dismayed. They're totally like, you know, you can tell that they don't believe you. In other words, you can tell that they're questioning your own perception. So as opposed to trying to save that relationship to the degree that you allow their input to furthermore confuse you, sometimes it's better just to wish them well. Just to wish them well. And you don't have to do it like directly. You can just kind of fade away, you know, and put up some boundaries and just become busy and things like that. But let me share this quote that I found in an article with you all. This is from a psychologist named Dr. Bethany Cook. She says, when interacting with these people, right, these wolves in sheep's clothing, which that's my term here, but when she says them, she's talking about these Machiavellian type people, right? When interacting with them, you might find their behavior charming and engaging, and yet you never really feel close to them. And the part that I'm going to add is because they're wolves in sheep's clothing. That's why. You can't get close to these people. You can't. because you're the only thing you're allowed to interact with is the sheep's clothing piece of them, which is not really the true part of them. It's you're interacting with a mask, with a shell, with a robot, and an empty. There's an emptiness there that you're not allowed to access in this person. So you know, for many years you might blame yourself, thinking that you're, you know, what's wrong with you for not being content in this relationship, when in reality you step back and you realize there is no relationship. It's all just like this, what's it called, like fog, like this smoke and mirrors, I think is the term. It's there's an emptiness. There may be a lot of gifts given, there may be a lot of you know, just eloquent cards, you know, just given and written out to you, and occasional moments of connection, but they're very fleeting. And if you notice, these people, not only can you not get close to them, when you step back and you look at it, you realize they never wanted you to. It's like they're always finding excuses to go to a different part of the house, or to go outside, or to get busy with something that's not really that important, but they act like it's extremely important, or their schedule just is so hectic, and you know it doesn't have to be that way. They're always creating excuses for why they can't really spend like quality time with you. So you can't get close to them. And you know, I don't know that we'll ever fully understand why, you know, or what they're doing with that time. Some of them are living a double life. They are busy. They really are, I guess what you might say, on the hustle, with other people and other stuff they have going on. They're scheming, they're cunning, they're doing other things. And then with others, you know, if you can't find any evidence of that, you know, I don't know. I think they just have their own internal world, where maybe they're just stuck in their mind in some kind of unresolved trauma that they're unwilling to work through, or they don't know how to work through. It's kind of like, and I don't know this firsthand, I know this from my research based on what I've found. It's sort of like when you have a person trying to connect with a parent who's an addict or an alcoholic. You can't connect with them. The child can't really connect with them. There's this barrier there that's created through the addiction. And it's the same way with a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's a barrier there that's created with that sheep's clothing, with their mask. But yeah, we don't want anything that's going to add to the confusion we're already drowning in. Let's look at the word confusion. So I looked up on the online etymology dictionary from the 1300s. It means, this is the noun, overthrow. It means overthrow, ruin, disorder, and shame. And so this is found in a lot of Bible verses, you know, in relation to confusion. It's used in those ways to reference shame and disorder and ruin, right? That God will cause confusion upon our enemies. And so that was kind of hard, you know, for me to take a look at. It's like, well, gosh, if I'm so confused, you know, have I done something wrong and God's causing this confusion on me? That was kind of where my thoughts took me, okay? And I'm thankful for it, because let me share this with you. This is a big aha I had. If you think about it, the art of war, and we're told in the Bible that it's, you know, there's a spiritual battle, okay? The art of war is psychological, if you think about it. It is scheming. It is manipulation. But the thing is, that doesn't come natural to you. Those things, manipulation and scheming and being cunning, all that stuff doesn't come natural to an honest person. When you're naturally transparent, you're naturally honest through and through, it's like you live kind of like in this automatic state. There's no filter there. You just do, because you have no reason not to. You have no reason not to just live in the present moment without a filter. And it's like you're not perfect, but you try to do your best, and you speak kindness everywhere you go. You just try to lift people up. It's your natural mode of operation. Hopefully you're also speaking kindness to yourself. But my point is, you have good intentions. So any kind of manipulation or scheming or anything, that's totally foreign to you. Okay? So I just want to remind you here that the Bible says, again, to be innocent as doves, but wise as serpents. This was my big revelation, and I experienced this firsthand. God sometimes has to confuse us to confuse our enemy, because we're not going to do it. We don't even know how. We're helpless. And I'll share some Bible verses from Jeremiah, the book of Jeremiah, in the description that's related to this. It's like we were just like a sheep being led to the slaughter. We were just totally helpless in that manner, and God saw this. And so he had to intervene, and sometimes he uses confusion in our lives too, for that intervention. So again, sometimes God has to confuse us to confuse our enemy or enemies. And it's to deliver us from their grasp, from their control, from their exploitation, and possibly from their very evil plans. Okay? In doing this, it's like he's now in the driver's seat. Okay? He's like, just sit down, just relax. Okay? And you, in the process, in the midst of your confusion, you start to witness the effects on your enemy. Okay? And you don't see them as your enemy. So it's a slow revelation, but you're witnessing the effects of what's happened to you on your enemy. God is amazing. I'm going to tell you straight up. So you may go through a season, and my season was while I was still involved. But you may go through a season where you're just as confused as they are. But it's kind of like a game. It's like they're playing a game of chicken with the good Lord, and he's not going to lose. He's not going to lose. Their mask is going to slip if it doesn't just fall away completely. It will, at minimum, slip. Okay? So what happens is your enemy is revealed to you as such, but only to you. Usually it's only to you, or maybe one or two others if you're lucky. But God reverses the same tool that the enemies use. And I'm just reminded of the Bible verse that says there's nothing new under the sun. If you think about it, the only way these people, these wolves in sheep's clothing, are even able to confuse us and use us is through the grace of God. It's the only reason they're even breathing is through his grace, and they forget that. So God says, okay, let's play this game. I see how you're confusing, the innocent. I see how you're confusing your victims. So let's play this game, okay? So when he intervenes, he forms this massive cloud of confusion, and it saves you and it defeats your enemy. Your enemy is basically, what happens is they're caught off guard, okay? Because as long as everything, as far as you're concerned, or their target is concerned, the person that they're controlling or taking from or using or exploiting or whatever, getting their kicks off of, whatever it is, as long as their target is predictable, then they can foresee things and they can plan accordingly to lie to you to harm you, to screw with you, whatever it is. So when they're caught off guard, when they're confused, it's like they're forced to change up their tactics in the moment. And this is what shows you that they operate by scheming and planning, because you catch the glitches. You catch them. It's kind of like this. Y'all, okay. I wish I could share so many details with you. Oh man. A lot of the points I want to make, I feel like would be so clear if I could just talk straight and share the details with you, but I don't, for a reason, because these are real people. These are real people that, that we've all been involved with and stuff. So, I try to generalize, but I struggle with that bad. It's hard for me. I like to be very direct, even in communication. I can't read between the lines well. I like to just talk directly to you one-on-one. That's just the best for me. But let me just share this with you. So, in talking about how they slip up, how you catch them, right? Because they're not prepared to be confused, because God confuses them. When I went into graphic design, ultimately I was able to use that through a website, right? That was the meat and potatoes of a company that I worked for. And so I didn't design it from scratch myself. I actually contracted that out to a design company, but I did go in and work with the code a little bit, and I was able to catch, we kind of had a small budget, so we had to go with a budget type web design company, and then I had to catch, all the areas where they made mistakes and work with them to fix it. Either work with them and point it out and then test it and get them to work on it some more, or I had to fix it myself. So I kind of dabbled in web design in that way, okay? So what's encoded on the back side of a website is you have to make sure that it's formatted not only for a computer screen, right, but also like the mobile version, what they call the mobile version. And so this can be formatted to look the same as the desktop site, or it can be formatted to be a different experience. But either way, it has to be specifically a part of the coding, or it's going to be all screwed up. It's like it'll look great on the website, but it'll be all out of place and messed up, and there'll be features missing and everything on the mobile version. So it's kind of like, if you're not catching this kind of stuff before you put it out to the public, to your customers, you're going to be like in a world of trouble, because there's going to be just all this that you're going to have to deal with, right? So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like there's this coding that's you can equate to planning, okay? Having your ducks in a row. I'm looking at my ducks again. I don't know what this one's supposed to be. Maybe an owl with the ears. But anyway, it's kind of like if you equate the coding of web design to the scheming and the planning of a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's kind of like they think they have their ducks in a row, but God will always have the upper hand. Always, always, always. And so, and it's kind of like just the gall of these people, which, what a weird saying, I don't even know what that means, but the gall of these people to do what they do when it's only by the grace of God that they're even allowed to live another day. It's incredible. But essentially they think they have their ducks in a row, and they don't have that support network typically, or if they do, they're not very sharp to check their coding. And when something happens in a moment, right, then they're not prepared, and the flaw, the glitch, is apparent. It's there and you catch it, right? That was a really elaborate example, but it was just something that came to mind. Hopefully it just kind of drove that point home for you. But it's just incredible to me, because it seems when you're out of it and you see the whole picture, you're like, man, look at all that effort that went into this facade, that went into this elaborate just plan, and sometimes it's financially driven. Sometimes they look at you as a payout. It's so many different reasons, but it's incredible the lengths that they go through, when all it takes is literally to break a website. It's just go in and just mess with one character. If it's in the wrong place, it can crash your site. See? And they don't get it. They don't get that they can be successful for years and years and years, and so confident, and yet all it takes is just a little crack, right? A crack in their little world for the truth to come flooding in, right? For all to be revealed. But an honest person doesn't have to do all that work. An honest person doesn't have to prepare to just operate, right, in their day-to-day life. You just, like I said, you do it automatically. So it doesn't take much for you to witness, to realize, maybe you don't have all the answers, but the realizations, they come to you like in stages. There's like levels of realizations, and it's like all you really need to understand is that they're not like you. They're not like you. And it's a beautiful thing. It's very hard at first to stomach. It's a huge pill to swallow, but in the end, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, for many of us, I would say all, but I try not to be absolute, but for many of us, there is no stranger thing ever experienced, or that we could ever fathom experiencing in the future, than finding out that someone you lived with, or someone you were married to, or someone who raised you is not who you thought they were. And yet when our eyes are opened, now we can start to identify these ulterior motives in others. And they don't realize that the training you were put through and the lessons you were given came from the best. Because when God intervenes, there is no greater lesson. So you get to where you can see through people, and you also become very selective, like real selective, and that's the most beautiful thing of all. It's like spiritual alchemy. It's like a new era is created for you, for your life, and it's like if you spend your time wisely, then it's even more rewarding than before, because not only can you now see people more clearly, but when you see the ones that are like you, it's like they shine even brighter than before, and all the good things in life are like that. They're like illuminated even more so. So like that whole concept of, it's really the little things, it's the little things that matter, or the little things are really the big things. It's that. It's like you live it in this new era, this new life that you have. It's like you're experiencing that firsthand. So I just hope that gives you something to think about. I hope that it is validating for your experience. I hope that it got the wheels turning as always. I thank you for coming along to hear the message. And let me just say this. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what kind of things you want me to talk about. Do you like when I share just inspiration from books, from symbolism in general, where I take a particular topic or subject or object and I just expand on that and use that as inspiration? Do you like the quotes? Would you like for me to talk more about the specifics with regards to narcissism, or the toxic experiences that we've had and just detail that out from my point of view. You want me to share some experiences that don't have to necessarily be mine, or they might be, but maybe I won't disclose that. So I would love to hear from you of what you would like to hear more of. And I just thank you again so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.